Silence can be sharper than a blade. It can protect you, reveal truth, and show you the strength you carry inside. This weekend, the silence you choose may be the very test life places before you, not against the noise of the world, but against the closeness of those who know you best. Shaolin wisdom begins here, where your focus rests, your life follows. If you don't control your attention, it is pulled by others, scattered by words, broken by emotions that rise in the moment. In the temple, we were taught that a single careless word can shatter weeks of inner practice, and the closer the bond, the deeper the impact of those words. That is why silence is not weakness, it is mastery. Many people think silence is only emptiness, but in Shaolin tradition, silence is a discipline. It sharpens awareness of breath, posture, energy. It turns your ear inward so you hear the true rhythm beneath the surface. When you do not rush to speak, you discover the intentions hiding behind thought, the emotions flowing through the body, the subtle currents of energy that decide whether your path is clear or blocked. In this video, you will learn why this weekend carries special weight for the chosen ones. Why keeping silent before the person closest to you can shift the balance of your mind and open space for clarity. You will see how ancient practices of focus, breath, and restraint guard your inner strength from being drained, and why in moments when silence feels hardest, that is when it matters most. Stay until the end, because each teaching builds toward the deeper truth of why silence now may decide how strong you stand tomorrow. Welcome to Shaolin Soulfire. Subscribe and walk this path of mastery with us. There are mornings when the body resists, when the mind whispers of rest, distraction, or delay. Yet the way of discipline is not decided by feeling, it is decided by choice. In the monastery, I was taught that if you only act when you feel inspired, your practice is weak. Real strength begins when you act in the absence of desire. True discipline is not the tightening of the fist or the hardening of the face. It is quiet, flexible, and steady, like bamboo bending in the wind. Bamboo does not resist the storm with stiffness, but it never abandons its roots. In the same way, discipline allows you to move through life's changes without losing the thread of your purpose. There was once a brother in training who struggled with the morning bell. His body would grow heavy, his thoughts restless, and often he convinced himself to stay on the mat. He believed that one missed practice was nothing, but one became many, and his mind lost sharpness. When he finally returned, he realized the price was not the time he lost, it was the clarity he had abandoned. Discipline had slipped through his fingers because he had tied it to feeling. Discipline is not about rigidity. Rigidity breaks. Discipline is about alignment. When your thoughts, actions, and purpose move as one, you do not waste energy on excuses or inner debate. You act. And in that action, a clear space opens inside. You begin to trust yourself. Not because every day is easy, but because you have proven you can act beyond the sway of mood. This is the foundation of authenticity. It is the way your words gain weight, your presence becomes steady, and your spirit begins to shine through every action. Strength of mind does not begin in thought. It begins in the body. Before a single idea arises, the body is already speaking through the curve of the spine, the tightness of the shoulders, the rhythm of breath. To ignore these signals is to live unanchored, drifting from one state to the next without awareness. In the Shaolin tradition, the first lesson is not philosophy, but posture. A straight back, rooted feet, open chest. These are not just forms for combat, they are gateways to presence. When the body is aligned, the mind finds balance more easily. When the breath is deep and steady, thoughts begin to lose their frantic edge. There is a story of a novice who sought wisdom in scriptures. He recited verses endlessly, but his mind wandered, restless and clouded. His master did not correct his words. Instead, he adjusted the boy's stance. He pressed his shoulders down, lengthened his spine, and told him to simply breathe. Hours passed in silence. At first, the novice resisted, but slowly the wandering mind settled. By evening, he had not memorized a single new verse, but he had touched something greater, the stillness within his own body. This is the essence of training. learning to read the body as carefully as one reads a sacred text. Every tremor of tension, every shallow breath is a teacher. Discipline is not only about repetition of movement, but about listening closely to what the body reveals. The stronger the connection to these signals, the steadier the mind becomes. Anchoring presence through posture, tension, and breath is the invisible practice. It is how storms of thought are calmed before they gather strength. It is how inner mastery takes root, not in grand effort, but in the quiet discipline of inhabiting the body fully. Stillness is not something you chase, it is something that arrives when you create space for it. In the tradition of Chan, the simplest doorway is the breath, the rise, the fall, the pause between. Counting each breath not as a race but as a rhythm is a way of calling the mind back from its wanderings. When the breath is shallow, thoughts scatter. When the breath deepens, the mind begins to follow its pace, settling into quiet. This is why monks often start with breath counting, 1 to 10, and then again. The numbers are not the goal. They are a tether, keeping attention from drifting into past or future. There is an old tale of a disciple who could not quiet his mind. He grew frustrated, believing meditation was beyond him. His master gave him no sutra, no lecture, only the instruction to count each exhale for 7 days. By the 3rd day, the disciple noticed his anger rise less quickly. By the 5th, he began to feel a calm weight in his belly. By the 7th, the counting had faded, yet the stillness remained. He had not forced silence. He had allowed it to bloom through the breath. Discipline in breathing is discipline in life. It teaches patience, steadiness, and the art of returning. Even when the mind wanders 100 times, each breath is an invitation to begin again. This gentle training polishes the heart like water smoothing stone. Over time, presence becomes natural, like the breath itself, always flowing, always here. Through mindful breathing, inner mastery takes root not in tension but in ease. The body softens, the mind clears, and a deeper awareness rises quietly, like a flame that does not flicker in the wind. Balance is not only about standing still. It is about recognizing where you lean without noticing. In Shaolin thought, imbalance begins long before the body sways. It begins with the weight of hidden tension, with unspoken expectations, with reactions that arise faster than awareness. To walk the path of balance, one must first see clearly what is misaligned within. There was once a student who trained tirelessly in form and movement. His kicks were sharp, his stances wide, but his heart was restless. When a strike went wrong, anger rose. When he impressed his peers, pride swelled. His body appeared strong, yet his spirit tilted back and forth with every outcome. His master reminded him, true balance is not found in the legs, but in the mind that governs them. Until he could notice his reactions and meet them with stillness, his practice would remain incomplete. Equilibrium comes through awareness. To pause and notice the clenching of the jaw, the quickening of the breath, the grip of expectation before it hardens into disappointment. This pause is not weakness, it is the moment where mastery begins. Because once you see the tilt inside, you can gently return to center. Discipline in balance is not about forcing yourself into perfection. It is about constant returning. Just as a tree bends in wind, yet keeps its roots deep, balance allows movement without collapse. The discipline lies in meeting yourself honestly, in noticing where impatience, fear, or desire bend you away from your true posture. When awareness shines on misalignment, the body softens, the breath steadies, and the mind learns to rest in its natural state. This is balance, not stiff, not fragile, but alive, an inner alignment that holds firm no matter how the world shifts. Qigong and Neigong are often mistaken for slow movements or breathing drills. But within Shaolin tradition, they are much more. They are living bridges, connecting breath with motion, thought with body, inner silence with outward strength. When breath and movement flow together, the body is no longer a collection of parts. It becomes one whole, steady and alive. In the courtyard of training, novices once believed speed was the measure of progress. They struck harder, moved faster, burned through their energy. Yet by midday, their strength faded. An elder monk would move beside them, slowly lifting his arms with the inhale, gently lowering with the exhale. His pace looked effortless, almost too simple, but he could sustain it for hours, his eyes calm, his body vibrant. The novices began to see that power is not in force, it is in harmony. Qigong teaches you to gather energy rather than scatter it. Each movement is shaped by breath, each breath steadied by awareness. Neigong, the inward training, refines this further. It is not only about how the body moves, but how energy circulates within, how tension dissolves, how focus gathers, how the inner fire is stoked without consuming itself. Discipline in these practices is subtle. The challenge is not in strain but in consistency, returning each day to the same slow rhythm, allowing the body and mind to weave together until no separation remains. Over time, the practitioner discovers a strength that is not explosive but enduring, a presence that does not waver when tested. Through Qigong and Neigong, unity is cultivated. Breath guides movement, movement awakens energy, and energy shapes the mind. This is the quiet foundation of mastery, power drawn not from force but from balance within. To carry a beginner's mind is to see the world without the weight of assumption. In Shaolin and Zen traditions, this state is called Shoshin. It is not about ignorance, but about freshness, the ability to meet each moment as if it has never been lived before. Every breath becomes a discovery, every silence a teaching, every step an entirely new path. There was once a seeker who came to a master with great pride in his knowledge. He spoke of sutras, of techniques, of the many teachers he had visited. The master listened quietly, then poured tea into the seeker's cup until it spilled over. The seeker cried out in protest, but the master replied, "Like this cup, you are already full. How can anything new enter if you do not empty yourself first?" The lesson was simple. Wisdom cannot pour into a mind that clings to certainty. Shoshin asks you to release the belief that you already know, to sit with breath as if it is your first, to hear silence without rushing to fill it, to face difficulties without assuming their outcome. It is the art of staying awake, not dulled by habit. Discipline here is gentle but deep. It means setting aside the armor of expertise and allowing humility to guide practice. The beginner's mind sees possibility where the seasoned mind sees only repetition. In this openness, presence becomes sharper, and the heart grows more flexible. When you treat each moment as new, life itself becomes a continuous unfolding. Nothing is too small to carry meaning. Nothing is too familiar to hide truth. With Shoshin, the path of mastery is never finished. It is always beginning, always alive, always here. In the ancient teachings, the illusion of separation is considered the root of much suffering. We believe ourselves to be islands, carrying private thoughts and private struggles. Yet every word, every gesture, even the silence we hold, shapes those around us. To remain silent and grounded is not only an inner practice, it is a way of honoring the invisible bond that links you to others, especially those closest to your heart. Think of a still pond. Throw a single stone and the ripples reach the farthest edges. In the same way, one reaction, one careless phrase can ripple through the space between two people. But when the surface is calm, reflection becomes clear. Silence is that calm surface. It allows both souls to see themselves without distortion. In Shaolin discipline, training was never done in isolation. Brothers moved in unison, breath to breath, step to step. If one faltered, the rhythm of the group shifted. It was a constant reminder, the strength of the whole depends on the balance of each. To hold silence in the presence of another is to acknowledge this interconnection. It is to choose not to add more ripples when the water is already restless. This weekend, staying grounded does not mean withholding love or turning away. It means recognizing that your silence carries weight, and that weight can bring steadiness instead of disturbance. By watching your breath, steadying your posture, softening your inner reactions, you create a space where the other person also feels that quiet. Influence is not always loud. It often works through presence alone. In truth, there is no boundary between your calm and theirs. The steadier you stand, the more balance you offer. This is the unseen discipline of unity to cultivate harmony within, so that harmony flows outward without a word. There is great power in the words left unspoken. To hold them back with intention is not to repress yourself, but to refine yourself. In the old halls of training, silence was not a punishment, it was a discipline, a way of polishing the mind until every thought and action carried weight. To withhold words is to sharpen presence, to teach the heart patience, and to remind the tongue that not everything must be released into the world. Consider a fire. Left unchecked, it burns through wood too quickly and leaves only ash, but tended with care, it warms steadily, giving light without destruction. Speech works the same way. Without restraint, words spill out, fueled by impulse and emotion. With discipline, they are chosen with care, each one carrying clarity and intention. There was once a monk who spoke rarely, but when he did, his words were remembered for years. His silence was not emptiness, it was the ground from which true expression grew. People waited for his voice, not because it was loud, but because it was measured. In holding back, he cultivated depth. Self-restraint in speech trains the mind to pause, to observe before reacting, to weigh the energy of words before releasing them. This is not suppression, it is mastery. Suppression locks emotions inside. Restraint transforms them into clarity. When you choose silence deliberately, you are not withdrawing, you are practicing alignment. Breath steadies, awareness sharpens, and what you carry within is purified. Then when words finally come, they land with strength. They carry the echo of discipline, the weight of presence, and the unmistakable signature of intention. Such speech needs no defense. It speaks once, and it is enough. The path of mastery is not built in grand gestures. It is shaped in small, steady rituals that return you to center again and again. In Shaolin practice, the day was divided by these moments: breathing at dawn, stillness before training, reflection at dusk. They were not luxuries. They were anchors, ensuring that no matter how intense the discipline became, the mind remained clear and the heart steady. A simple breath, taken with awareness, can be such an anchor. Inhale, exhale, a rhythm that reminds you life is happening here and now. When anger stirs or restlessness grows, that breath becomes a rope, pulling you back from the edge of reaction. Stillness works in the same way. To sit quietly for a few minutes each day, spine upright, mind attentive, is to strengthen the roots that hold you steady in the storms of life. Reflection closes the circle. At the monastery, even the most seasoned monks would pause before nightfall to look back on their actions. Not with judgment, but with honesty. Where was I reactive? Where was I clear? This gentle review sharpened awareness, so that the same mistakes would not harden into habits. These small rituals are deceptively simple. A few breaths, a moment of stillness, a quiet reflection, none of them demand great effort. Yet practiced daily, they carve deep channels in the mind, channels of calm and clarity. They transform discipline from something rigid into something natural, a way of living that carries balance into every moment. When life becomes noisy, these rituals are your return. When the mind grows restless, they are your ground. Like stones marking a path, they guide you steadily toward inner mastery, one quiet step at a time. In Shaolin life, action is the core of training. Philosophy was never meant to stay on paper. It had to live in the body, in breath, in daily choices. Even silence, often mistaken for passivity, was treated as an active practice. To remain quiet when the urge to speak is strong is not avoidance. It is a deliberate act, as demanding as holding a stance or steadying the breath. There was a time when disciples were asked to train in silence for days. At first, many thought it would be easy. No effort, no sound, just quiet. But soon the weight of their own thoughts pressed heavily. Some grew restless, others irritable. Without words to release energy, they faced themselves fully. Every impatience, every judgment, every hidden need for attention. Only those who understood silence as action endured. They learned to meet their own turbulence with calm, to observe without rushing to fill the emptiness. Silence shifts patterns. When you refuse to answer immediately, Old habits of reaction loosen their grip. A pause appears, and in that pause, choice awakens. Space opens where before there was only automatic speech. From this space, clarity has room to grow. Not speaking is not about withholding connection. It is about creating the ground for a deeper connection to rise. In stillness, presence becomes sharper. You hear the tones beneath words. You sense the emotions behind gestures. You notice the subtle currents shaping every exchange. Discipline here lies in understanding that silence is not the absence of action, but the refinement of it. To choose quiet at the right moment is to act with precision. It is to place presence above impulse, clarity above noise, and truth above the need to be heard. Silence, then, becomes more than the absence of words. It is the sharpening of awareness, the grounding of your breath, the steadying of your posture. It is the reminder that balance begins within, and that presence speaks more deeply than sound ever can. When you choose quiet, you are not withholding, you are cultivating. You are shaping yourself into someone whose words, when finally spoken, carry truth and strength. Carry this practice into your days, not just for this weekend, but as a way of walking through life. Notice how stillness transforms your reactions. Notice how presence shifts your connections. Let silence become your teacher, guiding you back to clarity whenever the world pulls you away. If this teaching has spoken to you, walk with us further. Like this video, share it with others who walk the path, and subscribe to our channel Shaolin Soulfire. Together, let us continue refining the discipline of mind, body, and spirit, one quiet breath at a time.